That would be cruel. That would be horrible. I don't think I can do that. And the problem with that kind of practical joke is it's going to make more work for me. So it's not going to be a good end game for me in the end. Okay, I got the stream going though, and I got and the pro okay, hang tight. Boom, ba boom. All right, there's the channel. Um, Let me see something real quick. Okay, hang on. I got one more thing I need to just check real quick. Okay. Okay. Hey, everybody. What's up? Let's see. All right, everybody, don't forget to by now you know the drill, but don't forget to hit attendance. I'm getting all that stuff caught up, logging it. Um, all right, everybody, I posted the two announcement pizza day at Nico's, which is Tuesday, next Tuesday, a week from today. Um, and then I posted about writing workshops, which there's literally no way to make that work with my schedule. So I'm just going to skip. Um, who's posting that one? Steve. Nice. George Carlin, one of my favorites. Think of how stupid the average person is and realize half of them are stupider than that. Now, he is, of course, conflating average. He's conflating mean with median. George Carlin was a plenty smart guy, but maybe not a statistician. But in a normal distribution, the mean and the median approximate one another. And the how stupid somebody is going to be a continuous function, which lends itself to mean. But anyway, it's approximately true. What real life example have you seen that validates this view? And then the validation, this is a quote from Reddit. Yosemite Park Ranger on why it's hard to design a bear-proof garbage can. Quote, there is a considerable overlap between the intelligence of the smartest bears and the dumbest tourists. That is really, that's profound, man. Okay, Dave, you didn't create that Peeps toothpaste by yourself, did you? Because if so, you get the early run on winning the chat. You actually did? You're not just like making that up? Ah, Dave, Peeps. That stuff is satanic, man. That stuff is just It's just evil in every way. All right, so let's get ourselves going here. Um, I would not be upset if we ended a little bit early today. Thursday is going to be the literary extravaganza. If you haven't turned that in, I'll still take it here, but you got to get off your butt and get that done. That was due Sunday night. And um, yeah, let me see. Let me see. Okay. Let's talk about personal and professional ethics. And let's shoot for five. I think today I got some stuff I got to try to get to. I think it's still a good discussion if we hit it and get out in the next less than an hour. Am I missing anything? I think I've actually set everything up correctly today and it's rolling correctamundo. Um, I mentioned the announcements on Canvas. They're posted in Discord. I read them. Um, we're going to talk about the code of ethics. I mentioned not doing writing workshops. Everybody just gets credit for that. There is no final for this class. So when we roll out, what I want to try to do basically, the problem is I'd like to have this class kind of racked up. Oh, under all on the meme. I forget the English word for it. Yeah, that's a good point. Um, by the way, what do you call if there's a pair of scissors? Then what is two scissors? Two, and what's the plural of scissors? Scissors? The problem is it's multiplicative. And what is one scissor? Is there such a thing as a scissor? Same thing with pants, right? One pant. We have one pant leg. Why isn't it called a pants leg? Well, sometimes they do say pants leg, also pant leg. It's just screwed up English. But what do you say? A conspiracy of scissors. Yeah, Dave. Dave is in the early lead on winning the chat. A conspiracy of scissors. A slice of scissors. A cut of scissors. Yeah, I don't know. But there are things like what's the plural of series? That's a similar one, right? Scissors, pants, and series are probably my favorite. Like the singular is sort of pluralized. So how do you pluralize it? I want to say I watched a couple of really good series. I have a couple pairs of scissors. Anyway, I don't know. So let's talk about personal and professional ethics. I, I'm gonna just make a survey. Let's start with a survey. A list of collective nouns. Oh, thank you, Dave. Survey. I have given. Okay, first question on the survey. I've got two surveys. Okay, I'm going to do two surveys. The first survey says, I have given some thought prior to this class about my personal ethics. That probably is going to tend toward the universal. Honestly, if you've never given any, okay, I'm baiting here. I'm baiting now. But if you've never given any thought whatsoever to your personal ethics, what does that mean? What are you, a sociopath? I, that would just seem really wrong to me. So 20 out of 20, 20 out of the responses so far. Now I'm going to drop another one on you, which is wake up, sheeple. Thank you, Steve. Next one, I've given some thought prior to this class about my professional ethics. Okay, similar yes, no. Because I wouldn't be as shocked if there was a couple outliers here. Because then, do you give it? And then what? The question then is, what form does it take? When you've thought about your, I mean, okay, um, where am I at? When you have, okay, so everybody, that's good, that's good. But here's the thing: when you think about like personal ethics, usually everybody by your age, pretty universal, has at least had thoughts about ethical issues and about religion issues, right? And um, whether you're simply raised in a religion, embracing a new religion, rejecting an old religion, personal, spiritual, religious, which are not necessarily the same thing, journeys, right, lead you into these paths of self-reflection about how do I do, what does it mean to be an ethical individual? And one of the things, hold on, I have a sneeze and I must apologize in advance. Oh, that wasn't too bad. I want to say this too. The notion of personal ethics, there's no like cornering of them on the market in terms of religious system or a religious. I don't mean a religious in the sense of non-religious or even anti-religious or even atheistic, as sort of that entire spectrum. Um, in terms of the sort of innate desire, seems to be a kind of an innate human desire to get one's head wrapped around ethics. Oh, to get one's head wrapped around the notion of personal ethics. Does that make sense? And one of the things that I think, not to get too deep into this, Dave, make a meme. It's always, the one guy, Dr. K, is going, not to get too deep into this, and you guys are like, you kind of, I know I'm not going to do the laugh again. Um, no, one of the, I think the classic misconceptions by a lot of theistic believers, I'll just say, of every ilk, theistic believers, is that if somebody is atheistic, um, or even sort of agnostic, at whatever level that's sort of a continuum, right? That they have no basis for ethics, and I think it's again, this is with all respect to those that have a belief system. Um, it's myopic in the sense that it's sort of masked by your own belief system, because an atheistic belief system gives rise to a different sort of centered place for ethics and for a belief in personal ethics than does a theistic model, right? But both of them are models of the universe and incorporate with them certain kinds of ethical decisions. And so, ethical sort of reasoning. And so there is a classic, just want to say this kind of for the record, that to be inclusive, because in the class we have everybody from, faithful adherents of specific denominations, typically Christian, being Utah or being the US, um, all the way to the other end of the spectrum with atheists and pretty much everything in between, people coming and going from a particular system. And I just want to say, just again, in the spirit of respect and dignity and inclusiveness, and especially respect for diversity of opinion, we like to throw that out a lot. I think it's become the vogue to say, and I believe in it, by the way, to say, diversity isn't just about ethnicity and national origin, skin color, language, sexual preference, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's not the only kind of diversity. There is a very important diversity, which is diversity of thought. And I'm a big believer in all of the above. And I do think that diversity of thought has gotten kind of a short shrift, as they sometimes say in the 50s. I don't know when I got that. But I'm just trying to say that personal ethics are not the exclusive purview of theistic believers, Christians, Latter-day Saints, which is a brand of Christian. I'm just saying it's not a lock on ethical values and personal ethical values. They simply come from a different place, but rest, I think, somewhere in the heart. That's my little speech on granting to the others. And by the way, if you're an atheist and you think you've got a lock on, what them damn Mormons are thinking, you probably don't either. You know what I mean? It's typical to be to have our own perspective provide a significant mask that obscures our view of what another group is actually believing. So the ACM, so hard segue. The ACM is the Association for Computing Machinery, as you can see up here, right? See right there. It's a very ancient and royal sort of academic, industrial, professional society. The other one that we deal with in computer science is IEEE, which is spelled IEEE, and it's I don't even know. I don't know. It's like international something or other, electrical engineering. I don't know. But ACM tends to be more of a home for the software types, despite having machinery in the name. Okay. Institute for Electrical and Electronics Engineers. Thank you, Daniel. Um, yeah, so IEEE is another one where a lot of software things wind up. But notice the early roots of our field, going back to our history, is hardware. So Association for Computing Machinery. ACM is more software focused. So there is this ACM Code of Ethics and Professional Conduct. This Code of Ethics is not based on any, particular religious system, uh, or any at all. It's I think meant to be sort of just kind of standalone, um, in as far as all that's concerned. So can you read that? Should I blow that up? That's better, right? Is that better? Give me some kind of thumbs up. So I want to just look at a couple things. Here's the summary on this page. This is how far it goes down. There's quite a bit. And if anybody wants a PDF of the ACM code booklet, you can get one. But let's take a peek. Thank you, Dave. Let's just take a quick peek. General ethical principles. A computing professional should. Now, I want to just say that some of you, I'm in this class of people, get a little nervous with the notion of should and shoulding. I think that there is, your mileage may vary on that. Um, I'm going to drop a survey. Let me drop another survey real quick. The survey simply says, I really don't like the word should. And I'm not going to look it up. I lean into the non-should category. I'd rather look at it as, law of the harvest, law of consequence, right? Um, there are ramifications for certain behaviors, and it sort of just depends on, the shoulding often seems to imply some external judge of the external right and wrong. So you see a lot of shoulding I see the most shoulding in confirmed theists and atheists. This is a paradox. It's also a bimodal distribution. Um, I really don't like the word. So yes means I don't like the word. No means I don't mind. Because well, I don't know what else I was supposed to say, Matt. Like I really like the word should. Yes or no? Um, um, yeah, Dave. Well, it means I nettle. Nice, excellent use of a field weed as a verb. Is that actually a thing, Dave? When they tell me how I should behave, yeah, no, I think that's it. I think that's it. I think we use it a lot. I think it's very common in our language. And the problem is the big problem I have. I guess what I'm saying is, a computing professional should. Well, says who? The ACM by what's their by you could say we think the world is a better place when this is what happens. Remember I said earlier that it was, in my opinion, nettle to strike or sting with or as if with nettles. Dave. Dave is making strong play for the chat. In the early going, he's racking up. Um, no, does this make sense? There's kind of like, well, you really shouldn't do that. Well, I don't know. Maybe I should. What does that even mean? Maybe I can choose to do it, and when I choose to do it, I also choose the consequences of it. It's a little bit subtle, but I'm just trying to make you think, as always. But letting that go, these are some things that the ACM suggests are good things that bring you joy, I guess, that make the world a better place, contribute to society and to human well-being, acknowledging that all people are stakeholders in computing. Now, I think that some of these, okay, what about this? I want to drop not really a survey, but really more of a question. Yeah, Steve, it should implies that there's a greater, I think you mean moral, not morale, Steve, a moral obligation. Yeah, right. And then where is the source of that moral obligation? You know what I mean? Where is the sense of that? Where's the source of that obligation? Now, if you want to play you want to play the theistic card and says, because God says so, raises a bunch of other interesting questions. And we're not going to go there. But one of the interesting questions is you actually wind up having to make, in terms of personal, I hope everybody has their own personal set of ethics, you know. Um, for those that are, believing faithful Latter-day Saints, you have the Articles of Faith, which is a kind of a cool foundational set of certain principles about belief, but other principles about action, right, and behavior. If you are any of a wide variety of generic Christians and or Jews, you have the Ten Commandments, right? You have the Golden Rule. Um, you know what I mean? Variants of the Golden Rule, right? Um, right? Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And there's variants of this, right? Like do unto others as they would have you do unto them. But then you get into some interesting, you know, interesting ethical dilemmas because there are certain people who are selfish bastards who actually want you to do things for them, which is in fact not in their best interest, right? Or whatever. So you get into some dicey. Point being that we've got these sort of religious and ancient ethical systems, right? The Golden Rule shows up in a lot of all significant religious belief systems, right? Not just the Jesus fellow, but a lot of people taught that kind of core principle. Um, but you got to try to settle into uh, where are you going to draw the line in terms of what you will or won't do professionally for money, right? And I think almost everybody has I think there's an old adage that shows up in like bad movies that everybody has a price. I don't think that's true. I think that there are behaviors. I think there are people who are pathological enough in their own personal ethics that they can be bought if the price is high enough. But I think that the vast majority, I don't know the number, I'll say 95% just to pull a number out of thin air, consistent with the idea that 86.5% of all statistics are made up on the fly by the person saying it. To which evidence I give you my former statement and basically everything I've said, this entire semester. Where am I going with all this? Um, what's your price to do what? You know, you got to get your head around that. And the earlier you do that, I think the better off you are in terms of the rest of your professional life because there's an old principle of make a decision kind of once and you don't have to rehash that decision. If there's something important enough to make the decision and you make that decision once and it sticks for a long haul and you never go back on it, a lot of power in that. Once you kind of go back on it, then you're like, well, what was my guiding North Star again? I lost track of it, right? And that's also one of the reasons why any journey through this ethical, spiritual, religious space can be so unmooring because, um, you know, if you move from theism to atheism and, you don't think you should kill people in theism because it's one of the Ten Commandments, but in atheism, you still think you shouldn't, but you don't know exactly why now, and you've got to come to a different understanding of your new moral principle underlying the same articulation of the idea, right? Whatever that might be for you. Um, okay, let me keep going. Okay, so Steve said, here's a real life example of an ethical problem. I think Steve, since I know your dad is an English guy, I'm harder on you, but example of an ethical problem. Example of a ethical problem sounds like you haven't studied English. You can also edit these things, by the way, using your phone. Okay, Steve. I, but Steve, have you ever had an English class? No. So that's a lot of typing for phone. So I'm cutting you a lot of slack for the rest of the class, Steve. Okay. So Steve said, here's a real life example of a ethical problem. A 3D software company faced. I don't know. Maybe I'm going to withhold this granting here. Their high definition three. Oh, that the 3D company faced. Their high definition 3D imaging software was being bought and used to create child porn. Crap, right? Definitely not what the software is intended for. Should there be repercussions toward the makers of that software? And I would say, hell no. Any more than you can hold auto manufacturers responsible because the auto was used in a kidnapping of a child. I mean, I think that's one of the prime ideas that when you build generic software, you can't then run around and control, nor is I think it reasonable to hold accountable companies because somebody used their product. Now, that's obviously gets more dicey when you have a product like guns, where the actual goal and sole purpose of a gun is to shoot somebody, not shoot somebody, but shoot something. The goal of a gun is to shoot it. It's not necessarily the goal of a gun to shoot a person, but I think that line is fuzzier. I think we'd have to admit that line is at least fuzzier, right? Yeah. So, Steve, in my opinion, there should be no repercussions toward the makers of that software any more than there would be, repercussions toward makers of photographic, film, film cameras used or any other, tools that are just that you can make something, good or bad, right? Um, oh man, okay, radiant. In Spanish, the same verb can be used for should and owe. No, it's true in Italian as well, now that you mention it. In Italian, the verb is dovere, which is actually it's to have to. No, it's actually more of to have to do something, to must. And and I can use that verb to reflect owing something. Yeah, when we say we should, who do we owe? No, this is exactly the right question, man. This is exactly it. Um, Brandon says he'll never work for an MLM. I feel the same way, although I did once do a consulting gig on software management, and the client was an MLM. Well, no, the client was a software manufacturer that produced software that was exclusively used by MLMs. And I had to learn quite a bit about the MLM business. I also had made a decision about 50 years ago, no, probably not that long ago, 40, that I would never be involved as a distributor, let's say, of an MLM product, or part of the chain. Your mileage may vary, as far as all that's concerned, and then your reasons for agreeing, disagreeing may also vary. Well, will vary. Okay, Dave says, can we give our ethics code a cool name like the Hippocratic Oath? Sure, go. What should we call it? We could call it the Hypocritical Oath. That's not that funny, but it does, it does have a certain ring to it. Yeah, so come up with ideas, Dave, for our oath. There was long ago, when Steve Martin was a comedian, he had this thing he would do where he would say, "Let's repeat the nonconformist oath. I promise to be unique." Everybody chants, "I promise to be unique." "I promise to be different." Everybody chants, "I promise to be different." Then he says, "I promise to not to repeat things other people say," you know. And then it sort of just, everybody starts in, but then they, and he goes, "Good." It's yeah, it was from Steve Martin. He also does the, uh, "Hello, Crime Stoppers. Let's recite the Crime Stoppers oath." Um, anyway, yeah, it's a good one. If anybody can find a clip and drop it in, that would be cool. Okay, where are we at? Um, let's just kind of hit some of the high points. And if you have comments, where are we at here? God and Golem Incorporated. Not trying to make it punchy, but Norbert Wiener wrote a pretty metal title about computer ethics. Is that a book? Can you drop a link to a book, Dave? And Braden, are you saying that the Steve Martin comedy bit that I cited is in a Gorillaz song? I think that's what you're telling me. And then, of course, you can't. Wow. Okay. You're going to share what song, right? All right. Thanks, Dave, for the book. Um, let me just. I'm super intrigued by that. This should pull up over here on this screen. Come on, you dog. Hmm. Oh, now they're coming. There we go. 1966. Fascinating. And uh, wow, Dave, thank you, thank you. I'm not familiar with it, and I really should be. I wonder how big it is. Less than 100 pages. Wow. Okay, cool. Thank you, Dave, and thank you, Braden, for the Gorilla's Nonconformist Oath. I wonder if it's as powerful as what was the song by Linkin Park sampling Martin Luther King? Actually, that whole album has a bunch of samples. What's what's the album? A Million Suns? I think it is. No, 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 no. Thousand Suns? No, the Wretches and Kings sampled a different guy, and I can't remember the name of the guy. This one I think was called Wisdom, Justice, and Love. I think was the one, which the entire song. Uh, I can't remember. Anyway, great album. For my money, the best album by Linkin Park. Okay, let's keep going. Avoid harm, meaning negative consequences when they're significant and unjust. Uh, Physical or mental injury, destruction, or disclosure. I think this ought to um, maybe a Spotify link if somebody can find that song with Martin Luther King sampled by Linkin Park. As far on the wisdom, justice, and love, yeah, cannot be reconciled with wisdom, justice, and love. It's kind of powerful and also really weird and strange. Yeah, that's the one, Braden. And the whole album is absolute fire. It is. It's really a great album, in my opinion. Um, okay, avoiding harm, being honest and trustworthy. I mean, that can include things like, if you're getting paid to work a job, are you working the job? Are you piddling around? Are you, showing up late, leaving early? I mean, what kind of integrity are you bringing to the situation? Honest about qualifications, limitations in their competence. You're not hiring your buddy to do your work for you. Be fair and take action not to discriminate. Respect the work required to produce new ideas, inventions, creative works, and computing artifacts. Depends on what that means exactly, but that kind of seems to touch on intellectual property. Recognize that some exceptions to a creator's control of a work are necessary for the public good. Without it doesn't get into specifics. Credit the creators of ideas, inventions, work, etc. Respect privacy, honor confidentiality. That's in the, what do we call it? General ethical principles. Then we get down to professional responsibilities. Um, let's see. Strive to achieve high quality in both the processes and products of professional work. I think it allows you to think about ideas like, if your company screws you over, are you justified in dropping some damage on them on your way out? Like trashing a server on your way out, or taking all of the code you wrote on your way out, because you don't think they dealt with you fairly. I've been involved in lawsuits where that's been the basic idea. Somebody on the way out is pissed and feels justified somehow. Put it this way, in the computing space, I've seen a lot of people pull some serious bullcrap and cause everybody to burn a ton of money, lost productivity, because they're just dishonest and unethical. I've seen it. It's bad. High standards, respecting existing rules, provide appropriate professional review, perform work only in areas of competence. That's a fringy one because we're all a little incompetent and we have to at some point stretch ourselves out into the domain of competence, right? The domain of incompetence in order to become competent in those domains is called learning. So that's a bit of a line in my view. What other ones jump out? Robustly and usably secure systems, leadership principles, ensure that the public good is the central concern during all professional computer work. I don't agree with this, by the way. Let's go with that one. Let's talk about that for a second, since I don't agree. I'm going to drop a survey. What's it called? Ensure hang on a second. And we're going to go A and D, agree and disagree. So the survey, agree or disagree, ensure that the public good is the central concern during all professional computing work. And I'm just so you know where I'm at. I'm coming in on disagree. And I know it's one of the ACM things. I'm not going proof by authority here. Um, what's F? Oh, fence. Yeah, that's fine. F is fine. It's interesting now how evenly we're falling out on this. And then for those kind of in the agree versus disagree camp, tell me why. I'll tell you why I feel. To me, the problem is this notion of the central concern. And I don't think it should be the central concern that I have in professional computing work is to build the software that my company needs me to build, that they're paying me to build. If the software is for a cause I don't believe in, like say, it doesn't even have to be as egregious as child porn, which is illegal, but maybe it's like, if my software I'm working on is not illegal, it's not gambling that I don't believe in, it doesn't foster products that I don't like, it's not, porn site or, whatever, that the general environment passes my muster, right? My general environment passes muster, then, which has taken into consideration the public good, then, in my opinion, um, my central concern during my next day's work is not what's the public good. It's my company exists to make money. Here's a point. And I'm going to get to Andreval, which I like what you just said. My point is there's only one. I'm going to make a bold statement which will offend the socialists among you. I mean that sincerely. It is my opinion that the only reason, well, this is, I think, an economic reality in a capitalist system. The only reason for a company to employ you is because by employing you, they make more money. In other words, the value you bring to the company has to be greater than the value that the company pays you. Otherwise, there's no profit anywhere. Now, I'm talking about on balance, right? In a particular, you might have somebody who, you know, you're not making direct money when you've got somebody mowing your lawn, but the lawn needs to be mowed or the accounting needs to be, the stuff has to be taken care of to create a certain environment. And other people are more directly measurable in terms of their work in the bottom line. Some people are much more directly connected, others are more indirectly, but at the end of the day, a company grows because it grows by growing, it makes more money. That's the responsibility of the shareholders. That's why people invested their money. That's why they invested their time. Right? We've already talked about the sort of mythology of the fat capitalist, company owners. Again, my opinion, right? Just sitting there getting fat because they exploit the working class, and everything is going to be better if we either give the government control or if every company becomes a cooperative. Andreval said, "These are my opinions, right? Love them, hate them, eat the pizza. It's all good." Andreval, I feel like a lot of companies, especially gaming ones, don't have much concern about their communities, and it causes a lot of distrust between the community and the company. Agreed. Agreed. And this is the point. That concern, in my opinion, Andreval, is not mutually exclusive from the idea that the public good should be the central concern. I believe it should be a concern. And this is the quote from this 3.1. The public good should always be an explicit consideration when evaluating tasks associated with blah. I agree completely with that statement. I just think here, if it said, ensure that the public good is a central concern or is an explicit consideration, then I would agree with the statement. I just don't agree that it is the one single solitary shining example of everything. So I agree with you, Andreval. Frozen says, I stand in the middle. Am I staggered? Is my audio crap for a second? Okay, I think I'm back. Frozen. I stand in the middle. Sometimes I think we get so worried about general public that we totally walk all over people under the guise of it's for the people. Ooh, that's the other dilemma, right? When you actually trash people in support of the idea of helping people, right? There's an old joke. Um, anyway, the punchline of the joke is, I'm from the government and I'm here to help. The one thing you never want to hear, right? I mean, because sometimes the gorilla comes in to try to serve tea and it just gets really messy very quickly. And then Frozen said, but I also agree it's wrong to totally step on the public for your own gain all the time. I think there's a middle line. I agree completely. And I especially agree when there's the commons. Remember we talked about the commons? For example, polluting a river because it's cheaper for you and makes you more money and then trashes everybody else's water or their air or whatever. That to me is not acceptable. It's absolutely not acceptable when you're trashing the commons. And in terms of people, we've had this conversation before. I believe you ought to treat people as well as you can possibly treat them economically. I also happen to think that that's the best thing for business. I think it is great business to treat great people really, really well. And I think it's generally problematic whenever you start to gravitate toward a centralized system of economic control, including having bureaucrats and elected officials in Congress determining what your labor is worth. I just think at the end of the day, it'll benefit some, hurt others, and is generally going to be worse than if the market decides. In other words, if you think, well, there's inequity in the market, sure. Do you think there won't be inequity when Congress and unelected bureaucrats make that decision for you? Of course there will. It'll just be different, you know. So I'm not a fan when the government basically, we've already talked about it. I'm a little bit more libertarian in my politics. Central, I'm a centrist, independent libertarian. Uh, Dave, so I sound like Marx. Thank you. um, Steve, in any given situation, that perspective could be bent towards anyone's motives. With net neutrality, the gimmick was for internet security and safety. What wasn't spotlighted was that it gave internet providers control over the websites you had access to. Yeah, I agree. In order to access Twitter, you might have to purchase the social media package from your ISP for $20 a month to use Twitter. And you also get access to the right, much like you have to deal with like cable TV packages and stuff like that. Yeah, I agree. In fact, we never talked about it, but net neutrality, and I never really got to the bottom of it, honestly. I was always just too busy. Radioactive gaming and social media are the worst, generally speaking. Can't argue. How are we on audio? Am I back? How long have I been gone? Did I cut out for like 2 minutes? But I'm back now, right? Um, you missed the gorilla punchline. Yeah, no, all I was saying was that the government coming in to help problems is often like the gorilla coming in to serve tea. It's sort of like, yeah, it was great to have, some free help, but they did break a lot of dishes on the way in and on the way out. Also left me with 40 pages of paperwork to fill out and 9 months before, I get the reimbursement for the tea. It just, no, I mean, I'll just say this. My biggest problem in general with government is that there's no free market competition. They have no incentive, direct incentive to do their jobs well because they have job security and no competition. That never ever says this is going to be better in the end, in my opinion. Oh, Dave, Dave. That's I don't know, man. If you think that we have to have a conversation, Dave. You're still winning the chat. I'll grant you that. But I think you'd have to basically flip that around and then you would actually reflect what was actually more accurate. The capitalist is at the thing, creates a bucket, and the worker comes to the bucket. And by capitalist, I don't just mean like venture capitalist or investor. I'm talking about something that's, I think your meme is, I don't like your meme, Dave. I think it is inaccurate. I'll put it that way. Still love you, still respect you, but I'm just saying, I think that the meme is one of those like preaching to your, yeah. I think it's more like, pitching to your own crowd. It pitches to your own crowd, but it has no persuasive power. And I think it's backwards. Okay, Matt said, I'm of the opinion that it's not ethical to be making any product, including software, at the peril of the public. I agree. For instance, if compared to the tobacco industry, as an extreme example, or even the way that really deep down won't do them any good, I totally agree. The social dilemma was interestingly about that, wasn't it? A lot of those people had been in social media and kind of woke up one day and said, what are we doing? What's the impact? I think it's important to have, still on Matt's comment, I think it's important to have the good of people in mind in what you do. If your product doesn't benefit people and you don't care about them, in my mind, that's pretty unethical. And I agree completely, Matt. I think we all may get caught up in the idea of just making a living, which is important as well. But maybe it's maybe better if it's not your only purpose. At the very least, we can treat the people that we work with well. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I agree with that. I think it's very thoughtful, Matt, and I agree 100%. Unlike Dave, who is winning the chat, but is now on my craft list. No, Dave, you're on my all-time heroes list, man. Your memes are epic, absolutely epic. And everyone's got a whiff sometimes. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying, Dave? Everyone's got to step up to the plate and just go down swinging, and three strikes. It's bound to happen. So don't blame me if my baseball metaphor just hits home, as it were. Jeez. Yeah, no, not a grand slam, Dave. Not a grand slam. Let's see, what else over here? Um, Opportunities for folks to grow, use care when modifying or retiring systems. Um, Recognize and take special care of systems that become integrated into the infrastructure of society. Yeah. Um, there we go. Yeah. Any last comments? I hope that you're at least thinking about, at the very least, what kinds of companies am I okay working for? Maybe you might say I'm not okay writing software for Cabela's because I don't like the fact that they sell weapons. Right? It's a big business for Cabela's. That would be an ethical position that you could make. Another person might feel like I can only work for companies like Cabela's because I uphold Second Amendment, and that would also be an ethical position. Each of them based on individual ethics, that are going to be at odds with each other and are not going to not going to be in agreement. Um, some could say I'm going to. Never mind. I was about to mock Dave's meme again, but I can't. I went back and I double checked, and it was actually Dave who gave me the Dr. K playing bass for the Neon Trees. For Neon Trees, how can one ever fall from grace after that position, Dave? Am I right? Oh man. Anyway, no, Dave, it's fun, and I hope everybody understands, that this is part of the give and take, and it's all part of the. It's all fun and games. But anyway, that's the ACM. But you got to give some thought to your own ethics, as Norbert Wiener once did. I'm going to hang on to that because I want to just check out that book. Maybe get it, put it in my stash. Um, there is an assignment. Um, there is an assignment to write your own little personal and professional ethics. They can be bulleted. What's really fascinating. Let me just say this because we're about out of time. A lot of your writing has gotten better, by the way, on balance. It's gotten a lot better over the course of the semester. And what I've noticed, an interesting thing, is that your writing often struggles, especially in the paragraphs. Then you get to your articles, or, you're kind of like articles of personal ethics, your own little statement of personal ethics, bulleted for your 5 or 10 or whatever there are. And the writing on these is generally great, generally really, really great, because I think it's just saying, I believe in being honest in my workforce, in my workplace, blah, 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 blah. Next one, because you're just talking from the heart, what you really believe, you know? And whatever that is great. Whatever that is, there's no judgment, here that's like, oh, you failed to parrot, Dr. K's personal beliefs. My own personal beliefs have changed on all kinds of different things over my entire lifetime. Sometimes over here and then back where I started from, or vice versa. They're in a constant state of flux, and I think they should be. If you're thinking, I think the likelihood that you're just locked into everything right and true at some point in time. In particulars, sure. In everything, hell no. There's no way. There's no way. Not for you, not for me, not at my age, you know. A couple times older than probably all of you. You know, I'm just saying mine are still moving. Mine are still evolving. And I think that's a healthy position to be in. Okay, any last shots before we cut loose? Tuesday. Thursday is the literary extravaganza. And last been so Dave wins the chat hands down today. Even also, let me just say, Dave wins the chat in large measure for taking me on with a meme he knows that I'm not going to agree with, because that's the spirit of what the class is all about, is to be respectful in our disagreement and to not get all, you know, butthurt because somebody dared to think a different thought from us. That to me is the really truly inexcusable unethical position, is to freak out because somebody feels different about an issue than you do and dares to express it. How dare they in the public square? You know, that to me is fundamentally unethical. So, Steve, beliefs are like science, they're continuously evolving with new information. Yes, I absolutely agree with that. Steve gets second place for the chat for taking crap from me, for me threatening Steve with bad mouthing his general literacy because I know his dad, and his dad is very articulate. There you go, Steve. Steve, aka Fabio. Thank you. All right, we're done. We're done. Let's shut this. Let's shut this down. Blow this pop stand. I will catch you on Thursday for the last day of the semester, a week early because we deserve it, and then pizza next week.